So 2020, the year of COVID, is a very tremendous, haunting, horrible, enlightening, spiritually such of a time. It's a very difficult time, and we're processing a lot, and people are processing a lot. Not to mention all the political things that were going on this year just added a sort of heaviness. There was quite a bit of loss this year, of human life, personally, and then other people losing people. So I almost feel like I've been cocooning myself this whole year, and this piece is sort of like, and here's all the things I'm feeling. Hi, I'm Vincent Michael Lopez, and I'm the choreographer for EFANORA. EFANORA is a dreamlike state production, both haunting and hopefully beautiful. I feel like my creative process starts from a very visual image. Like, let's see, this piece was probably started with just an overall image in my brain. A top light, two dancers attached at the mouth with thread. And then I had to sort of analyze what that means for myself, what this visual thing was doing. And then from there, storyline starts to emerge. And so it's part of a two-part series. First series was premiered in 2017 on 6 dancers throughout Seattle. That show was titled Nore Efa, and Nora is the Latin word for light, and Efa comes from a Hebrew derivative of the word darkness, or cloaked one, or darkness, as it's made its way through multiple versions. That piece dealt with 6 embodiments of all the emotions that were kind of going on: loss, fear, darkness, grace, hope, and soul. And this one, EFANORA, the dark light, is we just get darker down the rabbit hole in a very nightmarish dream state.
Yeah, the piece, from my understanding, was very much about like our relationships with those around us and how you meet people through life and kind of get tethered to them in one way or another, which was physically represented by the strings between us while we were dancing. And so there's a lot of that like interrelationship flow and movement throughout the piece, with people coming and going, and us dancing in masks and then dancing without the masks, and how that kind of affects our relationship while we're dancing and our relationship while we're dancing together.
The masks are attached by threads, red threads, and I wanted to speak to that sort of, those of us who choose to listen to our intuition definitely feel a sort of tethering effect with another human being when they love someone. So I didn't want to go so literal to the point of we're going to attach a string to my heart to yours. No, I mean, that's just like, don't do it. It's just so obvious. And so I just decided to attach the threads elsewhere, and then it becomes something else.
So I think for me personally, it was like a nice way to be in tune with like everyone around us. There was a lot of being conscious of the things, like for example, we had the centerpieces, the structures that we were always interacting with, and then like when we were dancing together, kind of being in sync of each other's movements and learning how to move with the mask, because we only had so much pull or so much give.
He's much better at that than I am.
That we had to learn how to move together as one.
A lot of the notes he gave us were to try and find a sense of tenderness while we're dancing and that sense of dependency. And so for me, at least, dancing together, especially tethered together by the masks, it was really just trying to find that sense of tenderness and that you're supporting the other person and we're connected in one way or another. I do think at times it could maybe get like a little anxious or like high stress, especially because we're connected and you're trying to push yourself to the limits. But I wouldn't necessarily say I ever felt like anything on the dark spectrum of feeling things. It was more of just dependency.
I mean, you see, online is, I feel like it's very hard because you can learn like the general movement, and it's definitely a lot slower because you are in very reduced spaces. I think the most challenging, as a dancer, you follow directions, but I cannot imagine as a choreographer because you don't have everyone in the same group, so you cannot do formations, you cannot do any like interactions, like, I mean, just anything that has an interaction or spacing you cannot do. So you're just doing basically basic vocabulary. And then what happened in our process was that we learned some basic vocabulary with the choreographers online, and then when we got to be here, you know, like social distancing in 10,000 studios wearing our masks.
Because of COVID, we were separated into two groups of 3 dancers. I think it was nice having a lot more space, and I think it made it easier for the choreographers to just split in between 2 different things. So when one choreographer was working with one group, we'd have the other one working with the remainder group, which was really nice.
It was interesting to see my friends dancing because we were rehearsing in different studios. So there were things that I didn't get to see until we were on stage, and there were things that it was just brand new because we got to be in the same studio for like maybe only 1 or 2 days. So to like put things together because of, you know, being social distance and being very careful. So all the time, like, oh my gosh, you have been working like that upstairs. And it was interesting too because the groups had their own energies. So the pieces looked very different even within the same choreographer.
It's definitely requiring me to choreograph in a sort of old school train of thought, but it's nice to know I have those skill sets with me. Like the mapping out of what you're going to do is very vital for virtual choreography. And then how does technology help you? You can record everybody doing phrases and then go into an app on your phone and then splice them together, put music on top of it, and just kind of have this strange experience of what the piece could be like. So there's another thing to do virtually, but
It's definitely an exercise for the brain.
Yeah.
Also, like computer screens are only so big and you can't zoom in on Zoom. And so we're like, what did your foot do out of screen there?
So like basically like for like any pretty much like professional dancer, like you have class for an hour and a half. Like for us it's like 10 to 11:30. And then like depending on the company, you will have to 3 to 4 or 5 hours of rehearsals, depending. And that's mostly every day. Or 1 day off, Sundays off. The difference obviously with COVID is that we didn't have any classes in person. So like a lot of us tried to take few classes here and there, but I mean, it's not the same. And we definitely did not rehearse. So, you know, we went for being active 4 to 5 hours to 0 for a long time. So that's intense.
Yeah, I think that's the nice thing about filming and doing a lot of these virtual productions. There's a lot of magic the cameras can do, a lot of filling in where you would normally have blackouts, so you could just have things smoothly connected.
I think the way this piece was set up too is really clever because it was set up knowing that we would be filming it. So there was transitions in between different spots in the piece where like everything would go black. And so that made the whole filming process a little bit smoother because it would be, oh, do the first section, and then you have that hard break anyway. And so it's nice to have like a stop and know that like that movement is done. We did it as best as we can, and now we're moving on, as opposed to like being on stage and performing live. You have the curtains close at the end of the piece and for intermission, and that is it.
And for me, it was emotional because I really felt like Vincent was trying to say something about maybe his personal life, but for me, it was more about, it just felt very physical, and like you were able to explore your body through like the space and the movement.
I think I'm asking people to consider their own lightness and darkness within inside themselves, and say it's okay to feel a certain way, but don't be afraid to ask for help when needed. You know, we're all here for a short period of time. It's okay to consider your own darkness, I guess. Like as part Buddhist, considering death on a daily is quite healthy. It's the same as considering life. It's okay to consider both.
Art is what brings hope, inspiration, is what elevates you, and that's why Olympic Ballet is here, really. And of course, you know, like we enjoy this because it's like our careers. But I'm really hoping that when people see this, they see not just the effort that the company put, but also like that it transmits something inspiring to them that will spark something inside them to keep going.